Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's your girl, the Brooke Ashley, and today we are here to discuss the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City, Season 2, Episode 2. Let's talk about Miss Meredith for just 3 seconds. Meredith said she was engaging this season. All right, she got tired of y'all saying she was boring last season. She let everybody know she ain't the one or the two. Y'all better stop coming for her son. Jen, it's the lack of accountability for me. And for the rest of these ladies, some of y'all are grasping at straws for a storyline. But with all that being said, let's just jump right on into it because we don't have a minute to spare. We start off the episode with Jen Shah in her closet with her first assistant, Stuart, who's also facing jail time as well, but I digress, and her second assistant, Murillo, and Sharif's nephew, Dwayne, is in her closet as well. And I was cracking up because while they were in Jen's closet, the nephew, Dwayne, was looking like, oh my gosh, you don't need all these clothes, shoes, bags. Like, you need to do a giveaway pile. Then he reminds her that Ramadan is coming up and she needs to do some charity work. Dwayne, all these clothes, bags, and shoes will be given away to the victims that your aunt allegedly scammed. So she will be giving this stuff away sooner rather than later. But again, I digress. So because Jen's closet is so massive, she and her nephew go to the side and they start talking. Jen starts off the conversation with her nephew by saying, Dwayne, I just want to be transparent with you. You know that me and your uncle were going through a really hard time. And you know that our family had to have an intervention with me. Then she says in her confessional that since they're Muslim, with Ramadan coming up, it's the time for reflection and a lot of prayer. And it's also given her a chance to reflect on the positives in her life. Dwayne says he's thankful that Jen and Sharif are working through their issues because they're both like a second set of parents to him. Jen says in her confessional that a while back, Dwayne had reached out to her and said, Auntie, I need you to get me and my family out of South Central. And she said that she was in such an emotional fog, she never called him back. She goes on to say how when she got out of her mental fog, she called Dwayne back up and moved his family out of South Central, and they've all been living with them in Utah ever since. That's really sweet of Jen to do that, but my only concern now is how is this all going to work out when Jen and Sharif are renting this chalet, and secondly, the fact that Jen is now facing some jail time. I don't know if they're going to have to vacate this house. I don't know what the money's looking like now. I know that Sharif is paid quite well as a coach, but you just hope that his job isn't in jeopardy dealing with his wife's foolishness. Again, I hope that everything works out for Dwayne and his family. That's really sweet of Jen and Sharif to let them in. I wonder how this is all going to play out. Now we see Jen pick up the phone and FaceTime Heather. She wants to reconnect with Heather and really get back to their friendship. Heather says she would love to have lunch with Jen and how they have a lot to talk about. Heather goes on to say in her confessional that she feels like Jen has quit on their friendship. Me personally, I would have given Jen my behind to kiss. Like if I were Heather, I would not care about Jen's friendship at all. Like we would not be speaking. I would have nothing to say to you. I'd be paying you dust every time I saw you.
And you're gonna always get it again and again and again.
Heather's cool and all, but I need her to grow a backbone like she did at that reunion. At that reunion, she was on fire. She was talking to the girls like she knew she was it. All right? And now to see her revert back into this, I just want to be friends with Jen again. It's like, girl, which one is it? We move on to Meredith, and she's at home. She's going over some new jewelry designs because we all know that she's a jewelry designer. So anyhow, she's going over her designs, and she FaceTimes her son, Brooks. Seth comes home, and he's wearing that diamond mask that Meredith was wearing in last season's finale. I said, I want them to burn that. That thing gave me the creeps. I didn't like it whatsoever. It is not a fashion statement, Meredith. I don't know who lied to you, but stop wearing it. I don't want to see it. So Meredith says in her confessional that she's so happy that she did not pack her bags and move to Ohio with Seth because he's actually now in Mississippi because of his business. What does Seth do that requires him to move like every 6 or 8 months? But anyhow, Meredith says that she's really happy that Seth is in Utah a lot and he's making an effort. I mean, he should make the effort, sis. That is your husband. Sometimes I feel like these women on these shows will praise their husbands for the bare minimum. It'll be like, I'm just so happy he's making the effort. He's home now twice a week. Like, and it's like, wait, what? But anyhow, she gets off FaceTime with Brooks, and now her and Seth start talking. Meredith brings up the whole mess between their son Brooks and Jen Shah, and how Jen keeps liking and reposting and retweeting homophobic comments regarding their son. Meredith says Jen Shah needs to mind her business. She's labeling him, and Brooks hasn't even said what his sexuality is. Seth is trying to be a bit more, I guess, level-headed, and he goes on to say, well, maybe it's a misunderstanding. Meredith was not having it. She was like, she is with my family, and I will unleash. I said, Meredith, you better come through with all the intensity and the emotion. And I was also screaming because on Sunday, Meredith was also one of the guests on Watch What Happens Live. And one of the questions was, Meredith, did you drop the dime on Jen Shah about where she was for the feds? And her answer was something to the effect of, I told you, like, don't mess with my family. And I said, oh, Meredith, girl, what are you trying to tell us? I think that she was being tongue-in-cheek. I don't really see anybody admitting that they called the feds on somebody. I feel like Meredith is not somebody that you want to play with. She seems very calm and reasonable and rational. She doesn't like to engage in the BS. But when it comes to her children, she's not here for it. And something that I forgot to talk about in last week's recap, I did not like Brooks when he was on last season. I found him to be very annoying. I thought that he was too involved in what was going on with the ladies. When it comes to the kids of these shows, it's cute if they're in a scene or two, but we don't need to see them or involve them in what's going on with the women and their drama. We come to see the housewives. It's not the house kids of Salt Lake City. You feel me? While I don't care for Brooks, I do feel like Jen looks silly going back and forth with someone's kid who just turned 21, 22. And Meredith even addressed that on Watch What Happens Live about she sees both sides about, Brooks is grown and he can handle himself, but she still feels like at the end of the day, that's my child. And no matter how old he gets, I'm still going to feel a way if somebody says anything about him. So it's just one of those things where some people are going to feel this way and other people are going to feel another way. Like there's not going to be a clear resolve. So now we move on to Mary, and she wants to renovate that really gaudy and tacky home. She calls up her cousin, Big Joe, and she says that he's an excellent contractor. He just takes forever and a day to actually get some work done. Now, I want to know this with Mary. Why does it seem like she only hires family? I mean, that's great that you want to keep the money in the family, but it's like, if you have an issue with how slow he works, then why wouldn't you just hire somebody else? And side note, I really like seeing Mary with her natural hair. I thought it looked so pretty. And I think she should wear it out like that more. I mean, just my opinion. Mary says in her confessional that she and Robert Sr. moved into their house when Robert Jr. was 2 days old. And she spent this entire pandemic looking at the same old furniture, and she's tired of it. She says everything feels stale like a marriage. And we all could tell that she was referring to her marriage. Let me say this. I feel like one of the main reasons why Mary got on this show is because she wants to divorce Robert Sr. And because Robert Sr. was the one who got all the grandmother's money when she died, I think that he has full control over it, and she might not get anything if she decides to leave him. So what better way to secure the bag on her own by having her church, but also being on this show and collecting these Bravo checks? I think that she has officially grown tired of being with this old man. I guess it was cute when she was 22 and he was 45. But now, you know, she's in her late 40s and he's about 70. Now it's not so cute. And I think she wants somebody her own age. So Mary's giving her cousin Big Joe a tour of what she wants changed. She's tired of this fixture that was in her bathroom. And she was so funny. She was like, I think I bought this when I was on my period or something because this is just so ugly. It's like, I obviously have my menstrual cramps kicking in and that's why I bought it. And even her cousin was laughing like, my cousin is a nut. When it comes to Mary, crazier than a soup sandwich. That's it. That's all. So Mary and her cousin Big Joe sit down to talk and he's asking her how she's doing. And she's going on and on about how her son, Robert Jr., doesn't talk to her. Then Mary says she always tells her son, it doesn't matter how beautiful a girl is. If she smells like fish down there, then run away. I was in shock. And when I tell you my mouth hit the floor, I said, Mary, what? This is why your son doesn't talk to you, because you sound ridiculous. I know I've said this in countless Salt Lake City reviews, especially last season, but I really feel sorry for Mary. I just don't know if it's like a lack of social skills. Like, I don't know what it is, but I just feel really sorry. Like, this is what you're telling your son? And I'm always surprised when people say, my teen doesn't talk to me or whatever. And it's like, but are you talking to them? Like, are you engaging with them? Are you asking how they're doing? Are you criticizing them? Are you making them feel a certain way? Do they not feel safe to come to you about certain things? I don't know. I feel like Mary's approach about things is just all wrong. But I digress. Now we move on to Lisa, Jenny, and Jen Shah. They're over at Jen Shah's house for lunch. Side note, I'm tired of some of these housewives saying how they're gonna have lunch at their homes and then there's hardly anything to eat. A few of y'all are gonna make fun of me down in the comments because y'all always laugh and joke about how I always point out the food. Because these vegetable platters aren't cutting it. We need a little bit more. Jen Shah says in her confessional, like, where did you find Jenny at? I think I'm gonna like her. We're gonna be good friends. And Jenny and Jen Shah seem to be similar personality-wise, so we'll see where their friendship goes. So now Lisa brings up how she went over to Meredith's house for Shabbat dinner. And she's all like, so me and my family went over to Meredith's for Shabbat dinner, and your name kind of got brought up, and Meredith has a little bit of some hurt feelings, so I thought that I would come over here and just talk to you about how you feel. I gave you a long one today, all right? Don't say I never gave you anything. Y'all would be so annoyed with me if I did a whole 30-minute video talking like this. So now Jen Shah says, I just don't understand the hurt feelings on her side because I've apologized several times. Now, girl, you've said sorry, but they've been very empty apologies. When you keep doing the same harmful things, the apologies really don't mean anything. You're just saying it in vain. And Jen isn't somebody who has given these ladies a real apology. It's just been like, I'm sorry, okay? Like, it's been that. It hasn't been, I'm sorry, Meredith. I should not have said that about your marriage or your children. Please forgive me. It's just been very shallow and surface apologies just to say that you've apologized. Now Lisa interjects and she says, I understand that, but she feels like you've been attacking Brooks. So now Jen says, I understand that, but we wouldn't have this issue had Brooks not made derogatory remarks about my vagina. I said, now Jen, you need to stop it. So now Lisa says, I understand, but I love you all both, and I just want you guys to come to some sort of resolution. And again, I think that Lisa is dead wrong to be in the middle of this foolishness. She needs to be on her friend Meredith's side, period, point blank. And Jen, my other issue with you is we know that you fly off the handle at the drop of a dime. So for you to justify what you're doing to Brooks, when we know good and well that had the tables been turned, had somebody been talking about your grown son who's 27 or your teenage son, you would have had an issue. You flipped out over the smallest things last season. So for you to act like you don't understand where Meredith is coming from, like that's ridiculous. The scene ends with Jen saying that everybody wants her to apologize. And it's like, well, yeah, you're the one in this group who's causing the most mess. So because of that, you need to issue out the most apologies. Now we move on to a short scene with Heather. She's at a consignment store and she lets us know that just because she's not Mormon anymore, it doesn't mean that she's still not trying to obtain perfection. And obtaining perfection for her also means wearing the best clothes. And I said, I know that's right. Like I said in my last Beverly Hills recap, if I got it, I'm spending it. And I'm a die in designer, all right?
I love this. Oh, this is really nice. Now I just need
beautiful, fully.
Yes. Now I just need a hat.
Whitney comes to join her, and they start shopping. They're drinking some champagne. Whitney picks up this $21,000 Chanel purse, and Heather was like, "Put the $21,000 purse down." So Heather and Whitney take a break from shopping, and then they start discussing Jen Shah. Heather's like, girl, guess who called me to have lunch the other day? And Whitney's like, let me guess, Jen. Whitney is skeptical of this whole thing. She doesn't feel like Jen has changed, and she's afraid for Heather to even try to jump back into that messed up friendship. Heather notices that Whitney's a bit skeptical about this whole thing, and she says, look, I feel like me and Jen are true friends, but she just gets lost sometimes. Heather, you're a bit too naive for me at your big age. A true friend does not treat you like that. Jen flips out. She cursing at you all last season, calling you everything but a child of God, making all these crazy posts about you on Instagram and Twitter, but you saying that she's a true friend who gets lost? Huh? Like, girl, where they do that at? Let me know. I want Heather to stop with all this low self-esteem chasing Jen around. I don't understand why you act like Jen is just the end-all and be-all when it comes to friendship. It's just irritating seeing grown women on a lot of these franchises chasing behind who they feel is the leader of the group or popular girl of the group, and they're chasing behind for their validation and their acceptance. We see it on Potomac. We see it on Beverly Hills. Like, it's on several franchises where somebody feels like that's the queen bee and they want to be up under them despite the queen bee treating them like crap. Whitney's just listening to her cousin and she tells Heather, look, I hope she changes and I hope that she can be a better friend to you. We move on to Jenny. She's at home with her kids cooking dinner. I have to say, I think that Jenny's a good addition so far. I like her. I think her kids are really funny. They have a lot of personality, and they were cracking me up telling those knock-knock jokes while she was making dinner. Jenny says in her confessional that when her oldest son was little, she opened up a medical spa clinic or something like that, and then she opened up several more. Then when she had her other kids, she ended up selling all the medical spas because she wanted to be there for her kids. She wanted to watch them grow up. She said her husband Dewey was really happy that she was a stay-at-home mom, but now she feels more like Dewey's housekeeper. So they all sit down to have dinner, and Dewey goes on to ask their daughter if she would like another sibling. And the daughter's kind of like, no. And Jenny's kind of getting annoyed, like, you know I don't want to have another child. Jenny says that in the Vietnamese culture, to have a large family means that you're very wealthy. So that's another reason why Dewey wants a very large family. I said, men really kill me with that, because you ask for all these kids, then you're complaining when your wife doesn't have time for you, or you feel like your wife is always tired, or you're crying about how the baby's crying and you don't have any free time to yourself. It's like you have 3 beautiful children already. If you know that your wife doesn't want more children, let it be. I feel like Dewey is out of line to pressure his wife like this when he knows that she does not want any more children. This next scene with Whitney, we can skip right on over it. It was boring to me. Whitney, baby, I need you to come harder with a storyline, because this whole thing about you complaining about how busy you are, you and Justin have the money, hire a nanny and a housekeeper to make life a lot easier and to lighten your load. And secondly, I don't want to imagine your husband on top of you. So again, we are moving right on along. We move on to the last scene with Jen and Heather meeting up for lunch. Jen and Heather meet up at this ice house. I don't know what that was. I kind of got creeped out. I probably would have went back in my car and drove home.
Oh! Shout out to everybody. I had fun.
I gotta be good.
Yeah, ... I'm out this bitch.
Because when Heather was walking through trying to find Jen, I would have gotten so nervous and anxious. And if you know me, I scare very easily. Like nobody else was there. I just would have been freaked out. So anyhow, Jen and Heather finally sit down. There's like 2 chairs there, some wine, and a cute little fire pit going. Jen's asking Heather how she's been. She goes on to say how she wanted to check in with her girl. So Heather says, I really don't know. I just feel like I've always wanted to be your friend, but I'm not seeing that on your end. Like I haven't seen that consistently. Then Heather says, and I don't understand all these digs that you're throwing at me on social media, calling me a racist, calling me a sea mammal, calling me honey boo boo. Like who does that? And if I were a racist, how could I be your best friend? And for you to throw that claim out during such a racially charged time, that's just really unacceptable. So now, of course, Jen is the queen of deflection, and she cannot take accountability whatsoever. She goes on to say, you know, you've hurt me too. So Heather pulls out her phone and says, girl, we're not doing this. She shows Jen the screenshots that she has of Jen being in people's DMs, calling Heather everything but a child of God. So Jen is trying to lie and act like that's not her in the DMs. And Heather's like, sis, it's your name with a verified check mark. That is you calling me XYZ. Jen says, you just want to believe the worst. Heather's like, girl, you're calling me all these names knowing that my kids see this. Jen says, I have 2 kids too. So of course, Jen is trying to flip it to get Heather to feel sorry for her. Heather says that Jen is used to saying whatever she wants and people around her just go along with it. It's evident that Jen has a lot of yes men around her because we never really see Jen with any friends. Besides her castmates, who does she really hang out with? It seems like a lot of her friends are her assistants. And that's an issue when all of your friends are your employees. Of course, there's going to be that weird dynamic there because you're paying them and they don't want to rock the boat and tell you the truth about things. Jen seems like she's used to having people yes her to death, and if you disagree with her or say no, she has a big tantrum like she's a little kid and she can't take it. I was happy that Heather was really holding Jen's feet to the fire and she wasn't letting Jen flip this all on her. So here's where Jen really brings the BS. She starts sobbing and says how she's not good enough, how she's always been treated like the outcast because she's always the only brown girl. I said, how pathetic of you to pull this out of your ass knowing good and well that you're wrong. For you to flip it like they're treating you bad because you're brown, instead of owning up to the fact that you've been a complete terror to everybody last season, you're just going to pull this out so that Heather will stop getting on your case. Pathetic. I wish Jen would pull this out on the Atlanta or Potomac franchise. They would have said, we're not even going to do this with you. We're not even going to entertain what's coming out of your mouth. And I was annoyed that Heather seemed to be getting emotional by this BS that Jen was spewing. This had nothing to do with race whatsoever. Jen has been a jackass calling people out their name, and they just want an apology, and she doesn't want to own up to what she's done. Heather goes on to say in her confessional that Jen is treated the way she's treated because of her temper, not because the color of her skin. I said, exactly. Then she goes on to say how Jen is actually treated better because of her bad attitude, because they're always walking on eggshells around her. That's another thing. I'll be damned before I allow anybody to have me feeling like I need to walk on eggshells around them. I don't play that. I know that Mary gets Jen together, but I wish that there was somebody who would just really put her in her place and really let her have it. Because Mary can only let her have it but so much since she's a church lady, all right? She is saved and sanctified. So she can't do too much. But I really wish somebody was on there who would truly give Jen what she's looking for. Heather goes on to say, look, I can continue to be a true friend to you, but if you don't want that, we can go our separate ways. Like, I'm not going to sit up here and keep beating a dead horse. Jen finally says to Heather, I don't think that you're a racist. I'm sorry for reposting that, and I need to do better. Then she adds on another apology for not being there for Heather. So Heather and Jen seem to be friends again, and they eat a friendship churro to solidify their friendship. I said, just a mess. Jen is just too old to be acting the way she acts. It's like Arrested Development. She still has the mind of an 8-year-old. Heather is better than me because I would have left Jen sitting there at that ice house or whatever that was. I wouldn't even have gone, to be honest with you. I mean, it was pulling teeth to get that apology out of her. But this was a good episode. I enjoyed it for the most part. Thank you all for watching my recap. I hope you all enjoyed. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you all for Beverly Hills. Bye.